So first I want to start off by saying this, that when the coronavirus hit, I became obsessed with how marketers were handling the coronavirus, and I created a presentation called Creating Content in the Time of Coronavirus. And a friend of mine, well, actually, I was thinking about it. I'm like, wow, creating content, that seems very superficial. You need to have a little bit more to it than just content. So I shifted the presentation to adding value in the time of coronavirus. And a friend of mine named Greg Weiss said to me, Jay, you can't add value. It's up to the customer, the end customer, to determine if they receive value. And I thought about that, and then I said to him, like, well, if I put the right ad at the right time, at the right place, and the product is great, haven't I added value? And he said, yeah, I guess so, but ultimately it's up to the customer. And so if you're thinking about creating value, let's think about earning trust. And that's a very important thing. And the way you earn trust is by being relevant and timely. And so we're going to go through a whole presentation that I update almost every day. Every few days I update it. So when I see something new and exciting, I just add to this presentation. So it's an iterative approach. And I recommend that for marketers. I recommend that you think about your marketing in an iterative way, because just because you put it out there doesn't mean that the world is going to change or is not going to change, as we know. So let's take a look here. And we know that the world has changed. This reality of walking around New York City, I'm in a place where there are just a lot of, there's the social distancing rules and the quarantine, and seeing people like this in the past wearing masks like this, you would think this person's sick. And it's just a new world, and it's scary. So I want to start off first with this slide, and this slide is something that puts things into perspective, and perspective is very important in these times and always. But this shows that over the last decades, starting at 1950, the average recession was 11 months. The average increase after the recession or expansion was 67 months. The average recession was a 2% decrease, and look at the average increase. It's pretty dramatic. So there are times ahead that are going to be good, and this presentation is about understanding where we are today so that you can plan for tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, that could be literally tomorrow. It could literally be today, because there are people that are profiting in this time. And there definitely will be opportunities to profit in the future. And it's not just about profiting. It's about more than that. It's about finding purpose and adding or at least creating an environment to add value. So what I'm going to start off with is this. Pre-programmed messages can take on new and unintended meanings that can have a damaging effect on your business. So there's an actor, this is a director in the United States. His name is Judd Apatow. And on March 17th, he said, all commercials seem weird now. And 10,000 people gave him a heart on Twitter. That's a lot of people. And why? Because American Chocolate Hershey's had a campaign called Hugs and Kisses.
Yeah.
KFC had a campaign called Finger Licking Good. And these campaigns were not bad campaigns. They just became bad when the corona came. So no one's going to be licking their fingers, or at least maybe they will be licking their fingers. They just might not tell people that they're licking their fingers. It took on a new meaning. Another thing that's happened, is there a question?
No.
Okay. Another thing that's happened is we've noticed that the status quo could be dangerous. So this is a marketunist. He always comes up with these very relevant and timely observations. And in this case, he says, some brand we apparently gave our email address to 3 or 4 years ago wants us to know they're here for us in this difficult time. And here I have a few examples of these generic coronavirus messages that I received early on, and marketers are still putting them out there. For example, my credit card company told me that I could pay my bill online. Thank you very much. That's much appreciated in this time of need. And they also told me that I could go onto the CDC, the Center for Disease Control's website, to learn about what to do in the pandemic. I knew that already, so that's not very helpful. And it's also not very helpful to have a message titled "Important Message to Our Card Members." You could be very specific. These are opportunities that are missed. This shoe company said that they're giving 30% off site-wide. They also said that they're giving money to Feeding America. My question is, why is a shoe company donating to Feeding America? Is it possible that they could have considered a charity that aligned with what they do for a living? Now, I'm not saying that Feeding America is a bad charity, and I'm not saying that companies shouldn't donate. What I am saying is that companies that connect donations with their brand purpose will have a much better chance at success. And then here, this is the best one of all, or the worst, I'm being sarcastic. This was my dermatologist who I hadn't seen in 3 years, and they basically told me that their office was clean and then I can come in. And unfortunately, I wasn't thinking about getting my skin checked during the global pandemic. And again, title, COVID-19 information. And why do you need to say coronavirus and spell out COVID-19? People know it's not necessary. So think about the title that you're giving. So here are some other examples of some bad promotion. This is from the president and CEO of NASDAQ, and it's self-centered. NASDAQ technology supports more than 120 markets around the world. I am extremely proud of our teams working globally. You know what? What does it do for me? It's not about what your team is doing. It's not about how much volume you're handling. Think about the story. Think about the fact that your company is probably important to customers, and think about how you can deliver a message that, instead of being bragging about how you're maintaining fair, orderly, and transparent marketplaces, to think about how you could guide the customer to a different place. What's the call to action for this story? It doesn't appear to be one. So again, I'm going to just mention that there are lots of ways to make your promotions better. So The Honest Company is a company that makes diapers, and they're committed to donating 3 million diapers, 30,000 packs of wipes, and 20,000 personal care products to baby this year. So, but why is Grande Cosmetics donating 15% of all profits to Feeding America? You see the difference between this one and this one? My advice to you is connect your charity with your business. And we're going to get into more detail on how to do that later in the presentation. Another thing that you should be careful about in this time is not connecting with reality, because that won't connect with your consumers. Why is this retailer sending me an advertisement that I should be buying a dress? I'm a man. Actually, I do have a daughter, but that's besides the point. No one was buying spring dresses because they were all sitting home wearing their pajamas. And by the way, discounts cheapen brands, so 50 to 70% off everything. This retailer always says that, and it isn't special anymore. Why is eBay sending me a notice saying that, talking about dinner parties? It just doesn't make any sense right now. And why is this investment company showing me pictures of fancy boats when I've lost a lot of money? It's tone deaf. And as a marketer and the brand, it's your responsibility to think about what you're putting out there. We talk about how marketers are the first to be fired. Well, the reason why we're first to be fired is people think of us in these bad ways. And we need to shift that. And I'm going to get into a little bit more on how to do that later. The other thing that I'll mention is treating customers well. So this car rental company is advertising a lot of flexibility. They have one-way rentals and no cancellation fees and a younger rider fee waive. Well, why did you have these fees in the first place? And why is it now, in a time of crisis, that you're deciding to start to be good to the customer? Same goes for the airlines. The airlines are struggling. But if we recall, and they're doing lots of nice things, like, for example, they're waiving cancellation fees, and they are taking your rewards and making them last longer. But if you recall correctly, what happened is they started charging for baggage above. They stopped giving meals, at least in the United States. They started giving the ability to upgrade your seat for an additional price. The airlines were treating people bad for years, and now they're just changing their tune because they have to. The other one I'll point out is that Grubhub, which is a food delivery service, and they're advertising that people should, excuse me, order food from them, but they're doing it on the backs of the restaurants that are suffering. They're saying to the restaurants, hey, if you want to participate in this, you're going to have to pay for this. And they've already been taking money away from the restaurant, so it doesn't come off very well. So those are some examples of promotions that were a little lazy, a little tone deaf, or a lot tone deaf. And I'll say right now that smart promotions command attention. So this was interesting. There was a travel company, and they weren't sure what to do with regards to should they be advertising their travel deals. And instead of just doing it, they sent an email, and it said, to our surprise, a whopping 72% of you said that they want to see travel offers, which is pretty cool. And they talked about, in a humble and authentic way, how they can help in this time of need, because people want to figure out what they're going to do after, but they also know that they can't make decisions right now because they don't know what the future holds. Below that is an example of a beer company that has capitalized on the fact that people will not be walking in their graduations. So this beer company is creating a worldwide commencement, and it's starring many celebrities that appeal to this demographic. So what a smart way to connect with a moment in time to an audience that likes your product. It really could have a long-term effect to build out that brand loyalty. The other example is Uber. Uber is putting out a message that says, help move what matters. We looked at the headlines in the previous slides, and they were important information about the coronavirus, et cetera, et cetera. Help move what matters. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 words, and those 4 words say exactly what Uber's mission is. So whether it's moving first responders or healthcare workers, or helping people to get food without having to go to the grocery store, just that word, those words show empathy. And Uber hasn't always been the best with that. So I do appreciate that advertisement. This is a bunch of stats from the ANA. The ANA is a organization in the United States that is the Association of National Advertisers. And they say that 92% of marketers have adjusted their creative messaging since mid-March. For 46% of respondents of the survey, the adjustments have been substantial. For 42%, the adjustments are moderate, and 12% they were minimal. And 89% plan on adjusting creative messaging going forward. My point of view here is, and the rest of the presentation is going to be about this, is that it's one thing to adjust your message. It's one thing to adjust your promotions, but I want to think a little bit bigger than that, or a lot bigger than that. And I'd like to motivate you to think about how we can go beyond promotions, because promotions are cheap. Promotions are short term. Promotions don't really get to the core of what your company does. If we start to think about it and we start to look at analytics of what's happening in our marketplace today, we'll see that according to this list from Stackline, that there are lots of companies and products that are doing a lot better right now, whether it be bread machines or weight training or hair coloring or ping pong, dog food. Triple-digit growth for some of these companies. And then there are some companies that are not doing so well, some products like, for example, men's swimwear or bridal clothing or camping equipment. And all I'm saying to you is take a look at these stats. Take a look at what you do. Take a look at how you could potentially align with some of the realities of today's world, and your company will be in a better place for it. This on the left is a joke. It's not scientific. I found it on the internet. It seems to be very accurate as I have my coffee and I'm on my internet, and I drove my car for the first time in a month over the weekend. I haven't been shaving as much, but I did shave for this presentation. My alcohol consumption is much higher. I don't understand this whole toilet paper thing, but I guess since you're home, there's a lot of need for toilet paper. And then a lot of people are wearing sweatpants. And I sent out that survey about Zooming, and I joked about, do you actually wear pants for your presentation? Because I'm wearing a nice shirt, but I'm just wearing jeans below that. So there are some things that just people have gravitated to in the pandemic. These are things, if you understand those things and you understand what your product is, then maybe you can draw a relevant and timely connection. If you look at some of these other stats, these are from the New York Times, you'll see that Zoom is doing great. I love this platform. I like the idea of the meeting, the tables, and the way it's organized to foster collaboration. And so these types of technologies are doing a lot of business. And how will they affect the way you go forward, both from a marketing perspective, but also from a customer engagement perspective? So after a customer is onboarded, how will you be using these technologies to, or this sort of different way of thinking to help? And then we could look at also the Facebook, Netflix, YouTube. All these platforms are having some growth and declines in certain areas, and just be curious. Spend some time digging. One thing that I say a lot is that it's called the data pyramid. And if you look at the pyramid, at the bottom is data, then just above it is information, just above that is insights, and on top is recommendations. The recommendation is the only thing that's valuable to your company, because the recommendation takes the insight that you gain from the data and applies it to the situation you're in. If you just have insights and you don't act on them, they don't make a difference. So be curious and think about how you can capitalize on what's happening. Marketing is 4 Ps, or at least that's what they told me when I was in college: product, price, place, and promotion. Product is marketing. It's part of marketing. There will be people in your organization that are product developers, and they do very specialized things. But at the end of the day, the way the product is positioned, the brand of the product, the pricing of the product, all those things are marketing functions. And if you think about the way you're bringing your product to market, it makes a big difference. Because guess what? If all the marketing that you did results in someone signing up and then they use the product and realize that the product is not good, then what good was the marketing? As a matter of fact, the adverse effect is that people could potentially start to say how bad a product is. So in this situation, I've noticed some smart moves in the world of product. For example, there's a company called Mural. And what Mural does is online collaboration. It lets you do a whiteboard just like this, where people are in the whiteboard and people are sharing things. And they have these business model type slides, and you can go in and move things around, and it sounds great. The definitive guide to facilitating remote workshops was created before the pandemic. But when the pandemic hit, they created a microsite or a small section of their site that brought together all of the resources that were in place to help facilitate remote working. There's a company in the United States called MealPal. There are plenty of restaurants that are in trouble. A trend that we're seeing is that restaurants are creating boxes, and you can pick up the boxes and cook at home. The meal kits that we were seeing in the past were not doing so hot leading up to the pandemic. And I recently tried one of those meal boxes things, and they're expensive, but it's good to have food, healthy food delivered to you that you can use and feed your family. It's certainly better than waiting in lines around the block for the grocery store. And that's what's happening, because they're limiting the amount of people that can go in the grocery stores, and people are getting sick in the grocery stores. So it's really nice to have this curation of food. Here are some examples of something that I noticed. So the three pictures here talk about the lovely United States system and how the states, so New Jersey, New York, and the federal level, all have problems with their systems. So in New Jersey, they're using an outdated technology to manage their unemployment system. In the federal level, they're having difficulty sharing funds or refunds because the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, has decreased funding. And then if you try and apply for unemployment in New York, you're greeted with these words, which shouldn't, anyone who knows anything about user experience knows that this is not the way to do it. So my question for these people is, what was going on for the last 10 years? It's now 2020, and you have all these systems in place that are outdated and not working for you now. And it's just now that companies are realizing that they need to act to make these changes. So what are you going to do now that you realize that your digital infrastructure is not handling the needs of your customers? It's time to make some changes. So think about this one. This is price. So my insurance company mentioned, I mentioned it before, that I hadn't driven in 1 month. The fact that I haven't driven in 1 month means that I'm not using my car. And when I'm not using my car, why am I paying for auto insurance? So it's nice to do this, to give 15% off to those that are not driving. It's also nice for that organization, the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers, to give content to me as a college professor. And they've actually expanded that offering to more people, because it's important to attract people that if you stick with them at this time of need, they'll probably stick with you going forward. Which brings up another question that we could discuss another time, which is, when companies make these discounts and when companies offer this free content, are consumers going to, are they going to think that the content should be free on an ongoing basis? And what do you do about that when the time comes for you to charge for it again? This is another example, place. So it's actually a combination of product, price, place, and promotion. Whereas the President of the United States is a laughing stock to the world, and says something idiotic every single day and embarrasses me as a citizen of the United States. Andrew Cuomo is the governor of New York. He's been doing daily briefings, and people are gravitating to his empathetic leadership, and he is very popular. So it makes sense that Headspace, which is a meditation company that helps people to relax, takes that, connects with Cuomo, delivers their product to people in New York that are heavily hit by this crisis, makes it easy to access. It's a win, 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 win. Everything is win about this. And you should think about this in India. How are you going to take your product and make it more relevant by focusing on a very specific location and the needs of the people in that place? And this is not, you don't have to only do this in New York. You could do this in other places as well. So as you've been hearing, when everything is uncertain, everything that is important becomes clear. And that's really, really, really an important statement, because when you have a bad experience and people need it, then it becomes really important that you address it, and that you address it fast. And we've seen a lot of companies actually spend a lot of time in this current pandemic to take their products that weren't able to do something and adjust them to make sure that they can be relevant in this time of need. That's really great. But the other thing that we've seen is that people and companies are not spending money and time on things that they don't need right now. So for example, the dresses that were advertised in the earlier slide, people weren't buying the dresses because they're not leaving their apartments or their homes. So it helps put things in perspective with regard to family, with regard to all these types of things. Which brings me to this slide, and this slide is the biggest message that I want to deliver in this presentation. And it says that there's some concept that's called creating shared value. And creating shared value is about the intersection of business opportunities, social need, and the expertise of your company. Michael Porter came up with this concept from Harvard, and it used to be that companies would be able to donate, and they would say, this is our charity, and they would do a report of all the charity that they did. And charity is good. No one's going to say it's bad. But charity is better if you could deliver something that aligns with making money and the value that your company could potentially give to a consumer. I like finding stock photography that is appropriate. And this slide was too good to not use. The easiest thing we can do is be boring. So even though you're good, even though you found something good, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're doing good means that people will care. So now I'm going to take you on a little journey using pop art to help you understand how not to be boring. The first thing you need to do is listen first. Gain intelligence, whether it's like I did with this presentation, looking through LinkedIn, having conversations with people, primary research, secondary research, anecdotal research. Think about what you're seeing, what you're observing. Think about the realities, the changes that we're seeing in the marketplace, and what does that mean for you, and what does it mean for your customers? The second thing is to think about what you are starting. Now is a time to have clear messages, clear product extensions, etc. And it's very important to define that. But when you define what you're doing in the time of crisis, you should ask yourself, does it align with your strategy and your vision? What you might find is that the crisis has made it clear to you that your company, or yourself, by the way, this is not just about company, doesn't have a strategy. Maybe you're seeing something that you didn't see before. This could be a personal thing. This could be a company thing. And it might be an opportunity for you to create not only vision, but mission, values, products, etc., that will take you forward into a future that will certainly be different. So, for example, for me, I have been giving this presentation for years. Not this exact presentation about the coronavirus, but the things that I'm talking about in this presentation are things that I have been talking about for years, around value, around understanding your audience, around being a relevant, timely marketer. But when the coronavirus hit, I made a concerted effort to position myself around that. So I had a LinkedIn conversation, and I got on the Advertising is Dead podcast, which probably led me to this presentation. I presented this to the ANA. I'd love for you to read my LinkedIn content, because it talks about how I went from a presentation like this, and someone asked me a question on that presentation, and I said to myself, I could help this person. And then what happened was, this person said to me, "Hey, Jay, I'm willing to pay you for your help." And I really didn't accept money for coaching in the past, because I believed that I was just helping people out, and I was focused on marketing, content. And what happened for me now in this recession or the pandemic is that I was able to connect my value or potential value with my interests. I'm able to do good for people by sharing these ideas and inspiring them. I'm able to, if someone does a coaching session with me and they present something that is undifferentiated, I'm going to use my core values of candor, curiosity, and collaboration to help them understand that it might not be a good idea, or what could we do to get to the place. Because I know this for a fact. I've been teaching this kind of stuff to college students for years now. And a lot of the people that see this presentation need more than just seeing the presentation to internalize these ideas and apply them to their life. And so that's why I now am doing the coaching. So that's personal, but will anyone care about what you're doing? So this is a slide that was created by Andrea Brianna, who's the founder of Rebel Mouse, which is a company I do consulting for. Rebel Mouse powers websites, and it thinks about websites in a different way than all the other content management systems. They use what they call particles, and each article is made up of particles, which are parts of an article. And each particle is a standalone social artifact that creates what they call a social user experience. And the content on the Rebel Mouse website, instead of who we are, what we do, about us, preaching, pushing, all the content is focused more on content that is readable, content that it's actual content. So it's like thinking about your brand as a publisher. And what Andrea said is that if you try and be all things to all people, you're going to squarely fit into this boring area. But if you could figure out a product or a service or an offering that is at the intersection of love and disbelief, or belief and love, if people are going to disagree with what you say, some people, not all, you're going to be in a better place. So let me give you an example. Nike is a product that has ads that annoy people. There was an ad with the football player Kaepernick, and he didn't stand for the national anthem. And when he didn't stand, it was very controversial, and Nike stood by him. And someone once told me, it isn't a principle, until you start to lose money. So they backed this guy, and it annoyed a lot of people. But the people that it annoyed were more like the dads like me who would go to the shoe store and buy any brand of shoes. The people that it excited were the people that would wait in line around the block to get the newest Nike shoe. And those are the more important people for Nike, because that's who defines the brand. That's who aligns with the brand. And we'll talk a little bit more about Nike at the end and how they work. But that's an example of this intersection. I'm going to show you two ads. This was in Portland, United States, and the governor of Portland hired an advertising agency, Nike's advertising agency called Wyden and Kennedy, and they produced this ad. That was pretty good, in my opinion. The music, the message, when you take a statistic 1 in 5 and you make it relevant to people, that means that 1 out of 5 people that you see could get the coronavirus, and if you get the coronavirus, you can die. So it had impact and emotion, and it was timely and it was relevant. And meanwhile, a representative in Portland, government representative, saw this ad and said, wow, this is really something. I can't believe that this advertisement is so negative. And I'm going to create an ad and a message that is positive. And take a look at this. Every time I show this, I have to stop it because it is so poorly done. The person has no respect for the skill of the advertisers that used insights in order to make it. No respect for design, no respect for format, no respect for timing, no respect for imagery, no respect for using a font that captivates. But ultimately, the point here is that this person disagreed with the message. And because the person idiotically created this stupid video, he actually gave more attention to the first ad. Because if you look at the stats on this ad, very few people have engaged or appreciated that ad. So let's now focus from taking this inspiration and making it into action. One way to organize our thoughts is around purpose, way, impact. It's from a company called Brand Foundations. And people talk a lot about mission, vision, and values. The way to take mission and vision and values, which sometimes confuses people because people don't understand the difference between the things, is to go from mission, vision, values to maybe purpose, way, and impact. What is it that I'm trying to change and bring about? What are a few unique ways that I'm going to make it happen? And how will it make the world or people's lives better? Purpose, way, impact. A way to get to the purpose, way, impact is to think about your product through this lens. My product is for people who believe. I will focus on people who want, and I promise that engaging with what I make will help you get blank. So the example below is the Dove campaign for Real Beauty, and you thought all we were here to do was sell soap. If you take that Dove campaign for Real Beauty and you start to think about what Dove did, my product is for people who believe that beauty is from within, from the inside. And you take that through the analysis here. It goes from I'm selling a commodity of soap to I'm selling a product that helps people to live life with confidence. And that's a beautiful thing. This is a very hard thing to do. And when I do my coaching, I have people go through this exercise. And a lot of times they start with the very tactical understanding. My product is for people who want to have low costs and high profitability or whatever it may be. That's not what it is. Like, think about your product through this passion lens. So this is Seth Godin, and he is a great speaker and writer. This is Steve Jobs. So let's spend a few minutes. It's 7 minutes, and I'm going to show you how this all comes together with him and Apple.
To me, marketing is about values. This is a very complicated world. It's a very noisy world. And we're not going to get a chance to get people to remember much about us. No company is. And so we have to be really clear on what we want them to know about us. Now, Apple, fortunately, is one of the half a dozen best brands in the whole world. Right up there with Nike, Disney, Coke, Sony. It is one of the greats of the greats, not just in this country, but all around the globe. And but even a great brand needs investment and caring if it's going to retain its relevance and vitality. And the Apple brand has clearly suffered from neglect in this area in the last few years. And we need to bring it back. The way to do that is not to talk about speeds and feeds. It's not to talk about nits and megahertz. It's not to talk about why we're better than Windows. The dairy industry tried for 20 years to convince you that milk was good for you. It's a lie, but they tried anyway. And the sales were going like this. And then they tried Got Milk, and the sales are going like this. Got Milk doesn't even talk about the product. In fact, it focuses on the absence of the product. But the best example of all, and one of the greatest jobs of marketing in the universe has ever seen is Nike. Remember, Nike sells a commodity. They sell shoes. And yet, when you think of Nike, you feel something different than a shoe company. In their ads, as you know, they don't ever talk about the product. They don't ever tell you about their air soles and why they're better than Reebok's air soles. What does Nike do in their advertising? They honor great athletes and they honor great athletics. That's who they are. That's what they are about. Apple spends a fortune on advertising. You'd never know it. You'd never know it. So when I got here, Apple just fired their agency. We were doing a competition with 23 agencies that, 4 years from now would pick one. And we blew that up, and we hired Chiate, the ad agency that I was fortunate enough to work with years ago. We created some award-winning work, including the commercial voted the best ad ever made in 1984 by advertising professionals. And we started working about 8 weeks ago. And the question we asked was, our customers want to know who is Apple and what is it that we stand for? Where do we fit in this world? And what we're about isn't making boxes for people to get their jobs done, although we do that well. We do that better than almost anybody in some cases. But Apple's about something more than that. Apple, at the core, its core value is that we believe that people with passion can change the world for the better. That's what we believe. And we've had the opportunity to work with people like that. We've had an opportunity to work with people like you, with software developers, with customers who have done it in some big and some small ways. And we believe that in this world, people can change it for the better. And that those people that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that actually do. And so what we're going to do in our first brand marketing campaign in several years is to get back to that core value. A lot of things have changed. The market's a totally different place than it was a decade ago. And Apple's totally different, and Apple's place in it is totally different. And believe me, the products and the distribution strategy and manufacturing are totally different, and we understand that. But values and core values, those things shouldn't change. The things that Apple believed in at its core are the same things that Apple really stands for today. And so we wanted to find a way to communicate this. And what we have is something that I am very moved by. It honors those people who have changed the world. Some of them are living, some of them are not. But the ones that aren't, as you'll see, you know that if they'd ever used a computer, it would have been a Mac. The theme of the campaign is think different. It's the people, honoring the people who think different and who move this world forward. And it is what we are about. It touches the soul of this company. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it, and I hope that you feel the same way about it I do. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Wow. So that is really interesting, really compelling, and it makes you think differently about people want a good night's sleep. They don't want a bed. People want to feel rested when they wake up. So it's about searching for something bigger and different, and your product just could enable that. And that's what brand marketing and advertising is. And it makes me think about this bullseye. And this is from a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And what he suggests is that if you start with identity, and then you have the processes to get to it, then you'll reach your outcomes. So as an example, if you decide as a New Year's resolution that you want to lose weight, that's an outcome. But if you decide based on the fact that you went to the doctor and the doctor tested your blood pressure and your cholesterol and you were unhealthy and you decided that you need to live for your family, that's different. And if you then say, okay, based on that, I'm going to do a regimented diet and I'm going to shop differently, I'm going to eat differently, I'm going to surround myself with people that are going to support my my outcome, that's your process. And then the outcome is you lose weight, but the outcome's a lot bigger than losing weight. And so when you think about your advertising, think about that. How can you connect with the identity of the person? That's what all these exercises before show. And then how do you take that through? This is boring. This is just a simple thing that says, okay, now that you've thought about these things, how are we going to document it? And it's just a canvas that you could use on Mural, actually, to really think about your target audience, your brand, your market niche, your vision, etc. And just fill it out. Put it down on paper. A marketing plan doesn't need to be anything more than this. Well thought out, well articulated. This is down to mechanics. So once you've come up with your strategy, think about how using content marketing through hero campaigns, which are the bigger things like the Think Different ad that we just watched, to Hub, which would be something that's, this is created by Google, by the way, something that would be like a podcast that would be delivered every week or every other week, frequently hitting your audience with valuable content and entertaining them. And then the help would be the articles, the things that you publish that when someone's looking for it, they find it. So for example, if your company is a lawyer and you are writing articles on things you should be doing in the pandemic to prepare for your lawsuit or whatever it may be when the courts are closed, a lot of people are looking that up. And so it will be helpful. But the people that find the article, it's probably going to be, this is about large scale reach. This is a little bit less, and this is a little bit less. But the people that find this are raising their hand and saying, I know, I am looking for this. So, and when they find it and they consistently get value in that way, then it is another way to engage your audience. This is something to think about. And by the way, all the things that I'm showing you here are just things I picked. These are things you would learn in business school, things that help you to prioritize strategies. Think about how much attention and how easy it is to implement something. Think about this from a product perspective. Think about it from a pricing perspective. Think about it from a place perspective. Think about it for your promotions. You can plot all these things out and really figure out how you want to, what you want to do based on the amount of attention and the ease of implementation. And to take it even further, you have this premise here where you could also see, oops, sorry, let's go back. The work that you do is core. This is core to what you do. There are things that you can do that are adjacent to what you do, and there are things that you can do that are transformational. So if you prioritize those things, then you're going to have a nice pathway to think about a roadmap for your product, for your marketing, for your voice. Core is today, and doing core well is really, really important. The smallest viable audience for your product will allow you to stay focused and relevant. And it turns out that a lot of times when companies expand, they lose what they originally stand for. This happens all the time. So how can you expand out to these things yet remain focused and relevant? That's the key. Getting your message out is as much about technology as it is about what you say. So as I said, selecting a content management system like Rebel Mouse that will allow you to distribute your message with relevance to the right audience at the right time, with page speeds that are on Lighthouse of 90% and above, which is a lot better than most of the publishers that you would see out there. That really helps. So make sure you're selecting the right technology and make sure you're thinking about how you're getting the message out, what your advertising strategy is, etc. So now I'm going to get into outcomes. And outcomes, this is the final part of the presentation, and the outcomes are showing how this all comes together. So for Nike, make your story their story. Move beyond what your brand does to how the brand makes them feel. They created this campaign. You know, Nike hasn't put up content on Facebook in many, many years. The reason why, or it might be LinkedIn, I forget which one, but the reason why is because they have their athletes do it for them. And so when the pandemic hit, they created this ad. Very simple. If you ever dreamed of playing for millions around the world, now is your chance. Play inside, play for the world. And they had their athletes distribute the message. So for example, Serena Williams and Federer, they all put it out on their feeds. It's much better to have people that have influence to put the message out. So think about this. Nike's mission is to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. If you have a body, you're an athlete. And now is your chance. Came out of that, very clearly came out of that. And they were talking to every single person that is stuck at home. And it could relate to every single person that is stuck at home in a way that they could own. And in the meantime, it's putting forth a positive message that aligns with the value that Nike could potentially bring. This is the Dove Courage is Beautiful campaign. This is user-generated content that shows the definition of beauty that people, this is not about superficial beauty. This is about the beauty of helping people. And courage is beautiful. It's what they've done. So that's what Dove did, and it's smart to associate it with. So in a world where beauty is a source of confidence, not anxiety, to create the next generation to grow up with a positive relationship with how they look, they easily took that, which is what the brand stood for, went through value creation, and created the Courage campaign. Here's another example, Zoom. So I really do like this Air Meet. I think that having features like this is a great way to adapt to the market. The Air Meet is very much doing exactly what I would recommend the company do in this time, which is how do we make a virtual conference more relevant? I'd love to even use it potentially to deliver this webinar to other people because I like the idea of having people congregate at chairs and tables and talk with each other at a summit as opposed to just entering and exiting. I like the idea of thinking about these summits and in addition to listening, what can we do in a summit to actually create something and put it forward to the world together, which might be a fun thing to do after this is like, what is the outcome of this summit and what are we gonna do differently together as an industry that will help ourselves and help other people. There are hundreds of people on this call right now, and all of us can benefit from that kind of collaboration and engagement. Because guess what? You can start something. All it takes is an email, or raising your hand and having a conversation. So what does Zoom do? Zoom makes video communications frictionless. That's the thing. And so what they did right when it started, the pandemic, they gave early education schools the free tools, and Zoom went from being seen as the conference call provider for corporations to being something that's useful and relevant. And I'm going to share my Zoom survey results with you that you participated in. And Zoom is now part of culture. It's allowing people to accomplish more. And why? Because the product that they have is good. And the product, the content, the branding, the design, all intersect. Now, yes, Zoom had some problems with security, and the problem stemmed from the fact that they expanded too fast to address the need. And the CEO has been very humble about that and has worked to be empathetic and say, listen, I screwed up, but now it's time to move forward. And this is the best part about it, because I don't know about you guys, but when I get on a conference call, and Airmeet did a good job with this. It was very easy. Everything worked properly. But sometimes I get on a conference call and then there's like 7 minutes of people trying to make it work. That doesn't happen with Zoom. And I can see all the people that are participating, and it's beautiful. And I could write on my screen, and I could record easily, and I could have emojis and great backgrounds. These are like all the things that people could potentially want, and it's up to you to configure it to meet your needs. So let's talk about that. So here are some of the features. So this is the Tiger King. This is a Netflix US thing that seems to be popular right now. I can't stand it, but that's all right. And so how do you feel about Zoom backgrounds? And this survey is for the Netsavvies community. Fun, 62% said fun, 24% said distracting, 15% didn't know what Zoom backgrounds were. I could see it both ways. I think it's fun, I think it's cool, I think it's interesting, but I also see the novelty of these backgrounds being something that could potentially take away from the content that's being presented, especially if people are constantly shifting them. Last night I had a Zoom birthday party for a friend of mine, and I put a background, happy birthday, and people commented on it, and it was cute, it added value. But if you're just gonna be playing around with it, it might not be the best thing. The other thing you could think about is if you use a Zoom background and you think about what you're presenting and how you could reinforce it. I actually created a Zoom background for this presentation, and on the back it had my LinkedIn and my address, and my web address, and so you know that's valuable because it's serving a purpose. Pants. It's a known fact that a lot of people just look proper from the ground up, from the top up. Like I am wearing jeans right now, and I have my shirt on, and this guy's wearing flip-flops. And if you watch some of the news bloopers, sometimes you see the weather people, and the camera angle goes down, and you see that they're actually not wearing, you know, they're wearing fancy stuff up top, but not on the bottom. So 36% of you said yes, you wear pants. 27% said no, and I guess this is you know, a little funny because you know, I don't know how to interpret no. And then sometimes. So it's clear that you could be proper on the top and, you know, the party on the bottom. Ever use the bathroom while on a Zoom? So we know that there's mutes, and you're in Zooms all day, and you have opportunities that you know you need to go. When you gotta go, you gotta go. And it turns out that 27% of you have used the bathroom while on Zoom. 3% were caught. Some people were saying maybe, some people were saying never. Just be careful. That's what I have to say on that one. Have you ever been Zoom bombed? So this happened in the survey. There was an example of a person that entered the call, and this is the type of security issue that they've worked through, hopefully now. But people were entering these Zooms. And then the final one was ever attended a Zoom party. So tonight, a US time, I'm doing a Zoom party called Good Enough for Now. And Good Enough for Now is just a bunch of people talking about a bunch of pandemic-related topics and trying to figure out what this all means for us, and then create something together. And so it's a fun thing to do. But it looks like 79% of you have not attended a Zoom party. Anyway, in conclusion, I'd like to just say that double down on what you stand for. If you don't stand for something, now's the time that you can reinvent yourself as a company, as a product, as an individual. I'll tell you this, if you're out of work at this point in time and you think that your goal is to get your next job, it's probably a good goal if you have to support yourself and support your family. But I also know for a fact from personal experience that sometimes if you take a job that doesn't connect with you and doesn't add value into your heart, you're going to eventually not be that happy. So The question is, how can you use this time to think about who you are, what you do, and the value you could add to the world? You could also refine your product service to address today's reality, and you could inspire decisive action based on what your brand stands for. Speak confidently and relevant with empathy. Deliver expected or unexpected value. I like that. Expected is what people expect of your brand. It's things that you, if you're using a Zoom, it should work. But unexpected value is these surprises that surprise and delight, as we used to say at Mastercard, really help consumers to see you in a different light and solidify your reputation and relevance in this time of need. So in order to help facilitate this conversation, I created a LinkedIn community. LinkedIn is probably the worst place to create a community because the community is not robust and doesn't have great functionality, but a lot of the topics and discussions and people are on LinkedIn. I've seen communities created in Slack that might be better, but I'd appreciate if you join this. And if you have any questions about earning trust in uncertain times, the connection between heart and head, this would be a great place to ask and connect with people. Speaking of communities, I have another community here that just popped up. And then finally, the Collective is my company. And when I left IBM, I made a decision to venture off and work on my own. And but I didn't really want to work on my own. I wanted to work with people. And the Collective is the logo represents the people that are coming together. And what the Collective has shifted to is not just a community of people, but it's a community of products and software. We handle user experience, we handle product creation, we handle branding, and we bring all those things together. And software partners, all that. And so it really, the philosophy of this presentation is applied through the Collective, and we purpose-build teams to solve for that. And here's my contact information. And with that, I will shut the presentation and we can get on to questions and answers.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Jay for the wonderful presentation that is. I think this presentation will change the kind of thinking most of people have just now. I think it will surely benefit these guys. In the way we are thinking just now about our product, about our brand. Maybe it is personal or professional, or as a company, or even if we are working. I think this 45 minutes, I think 75 around minutes will change a lot of perspectives that people are having just now in their mind. Thanks a lot again for the presentation. We will take up few questions. If you anybody is having any question, they can write it down in the question and answer segment, which is there on the right hand side. You will be able to see that. So you will see questions. Please don't write them in chat because there are issues which are there in chat and your question might get hid there. Okay, so I have few questions which people have asked, and one of my team members was able to collect them during this time. So, sir, there's a question by Kaushal Mehta. So it is about Nike mainly. So why was donating bad for the shoe company? On one hand, they are helping the community, and other hand, they are hitting the EQ of the customers. So what is something that you think about it? Your thoughts about that?
So what can you repeat that? It was they're hurt. What are they hurting?
So at one place they are donating by their shoe company, okay, and then helping some of the communities there. And on the other hand, they are taking a stand on something which I think not everybody is in line with. But then they are also getting some money from those things. So,
okay,
to you, is it good, bad, or that can be done by a company like that?
Nike has donated $15 million to various causes, but the smart advertising that they do supersedes those donations. So people, what I'm saying and what I said early in the presentation is that people are not going to remember donations that are not connected with people's hearts and souls and identities. And the advertising that Nike did is great. and it really connects with people. The donations are just a good thing to do. And I would argue that people are going to remember the advertising and the branding more than they remember the donations.
Okay. So let us move on to next question. Himanshu Kashyap is asking this question. In this tough situation, which is more important, building trust for long term or sales for short term? Because a lot of, I think, companies are going to be in crisis in the coming days. So some of them are, I'm just extended this question because a few of them asked us also. So maybe we can jump into making masks, or we can jump into making sanitizers, or those kind of things, or those are the things which a lot of people are going to do. So what is something that you can share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe that it's great to do good things for the community. And in this time of need, when hospitals needed masks and people needed hand sanitizer, a lot of companies stepped up and did that. But I just don't understand sometimes how an alcohol company that makes something that you can drink can shift to making hand sanitizer, and what are the effects of that? The president of the United States said some really stupid things last week about Lysol and disinfectants, and maybe you could use light. And it's just like, think about what your company does. Think about where you could add value. So in times of crisis, which is we're seeing the curve go down, and the people are it's less of a crisis mode and more of a like slow recovery mode. So, okay, yes, I think it made sense to make the hand sanitizer because people desperate for, we needed the mask. But that's not a long-term play. Now it's time to think smartly and use some of the strategies that I mentioned to define what your product does, how it does it in new terms that are relevant to today's world.
Thanks a lot for that. Extending that topic with a question which Deep Shah has just now. So, do you think image of a national leader will play a role in branding and marketing in this time of crisis? So, his other question is: foreign investor may give weight to political stability over branding of companies.
So, the national leader, I think that. I'm not sure. I mean, from an American perspective, I can't say enough bad things about the president, and I don't want to get into politics, but I think that he's doing a lot of damage for a lot of people just based on his policies. The policies that he's putting in place have been damaging to our country. And for example, just thinking about the environment and all the things that he says and all the things that he does, the way that the country is going to recover in this world is based on some of the decisions that he makes. And the stimulus and the way the money is being allocated to different companies, I think, is very much connected. And I think if we were to have President Obama back in the White House, those decisions would have been much more methodical and well thought out and applied a lot of the same principles. But we have someone that is based on ego, thinking about what are the ratings for his teleconferences in the middle of the day, and that's not what it's about. It's about the people, not about the person. So anyway, you could tell that I'm not a supporter.
We get that. So another question is, it is by Vishu Sen. Vishu Sen is asking, so he is firstly thanking you for an insightful discussion, and it had stats, it had maps, creative presentation, and those kind of things, and he's very much thankful for that. He is asking for any tips which artist painters with mixed media will be having. So you can go to the question segment if you want to see the question. Any tips for artist painters, mixed media, sellers post-COVID? So somebody who is an artist, and what will be his situation in the post-COVID situation? Because I think a lot of artists are going to face a backslash, because people won't be spending that much amount on luxury things like paintings and those kind of things. Maybe that might be the question that he is trying to ask.
Okay, that's a good question, and the answer is simple. Think about your product and think about how you can be relevant. I've spent a lot of time in the past 2 years working to try and sell high ticket items with branding to major companies. And I have many leads in the pipeline that could materialize, but I don't know when. And the coronavirus hit me in a very significant way, and it hit a lot of people in a very significant way. So when I made a decision to start charging a lot lower for 3 45-minute coaching sessions that anyone here could benefit from, and I started to consider, how do I use webinars and other mechanisms to be lively, things started to come together for me. And so I would say that the artists could have the same opportunity. So instead of creating a large gallery opening, create some Zoom backgrounds, create some things that you could distribute online. Look at some of the companies that allow you to make a t-shirt and put your art on there. Say something that aligns with helping people get through this time. So that's what I'm talking about. Be relevant based on the trends and adapt your strategy to that.
Great. Another question is from Meet Shah. He is asking, what is one thing that you think will change forever about branding and marketing post this pandemic?
One thing that will change forever about branding and marketing is that we're going to continue to be more empathetic. I've watched marketing change from, you should smoke a cigarette. Well, I haven't watched it. That was before my time. But smoke a cigarette and you'll be cool. I mean, you cannot distribute a message and just like push it out and hope that people are going to gravitate to it. There's something that's called story doing, which is different than storytelling. Storytelling is, I'm telling you a story and I hope you latch on. But story doing is, how do we attract people by like living it and help people to live it. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in this post-pandemic time. And I think also the other thing that you'll see is that there's just so many services that are out there to do all these different things. And marketing, at least I hope, people, if they have a message that people care about, it's a lot better than just focusing on the tactics and just putting it out there. So my hope is that we can help people to be more strategic. So as you go through this conference, everyone, and you see a presentation on SEO or SEM, think it's great to know these tactics, but garbage in, garbage out. So you put in bad words, you don't know what you're saying, you don't know what your call to action is, your SEO or your SEM will not work because you're not connecting with people and people are not going to engage.
Very true on the last part. The content is the king. Even if you have some skill set, I think if you have the right content, it will go places.
Mm-hmm.
Other question that Sanket Patel is having is, how will artificial intelligence affect in marketing or mainly digital marketing in the coming days? So a lot of things are getting automated. There is a machine learning thing coming in. And if we say Facebook ads, bidding and everything is also happening on by the bots. So most of the marketing things that people are learning just now maybe will be extinct in next 2-3 years. That will be done by bots. So
it's possible. Bots are only as good as how they're programmed. A bot is different than AI. A bot is simply an if-then statement. So I'm not going to mention Alexa. Oh, if I say it, she's going to start talking to me. Alexa, what's the weather?
Right now in New York, it's 49 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies. Today's forecast has shower with a high of 39 degrees and a low of 41 degrees.
So,
by the way, we've spoken before and it would be nice to know your name. Should I do that?
Yes, my name is Jay. So now she has voice recognition, and it was programmed to say, and that couldn't have happened in a better way, because normally she just says the weather. But sometimes she says, hope you have a good week. Sometimes she says, okay, based on this weather, you should wear a raincoat or whatever. Those are things that are programmed. Artificial intelligence is a lot different than that. When I worked at IBM, they had this thing called Project Debater, and Project Debater was a artificial intelligence to argue a point versus a human being. And that's a big difference. But I would say that a lot of people and a lot of companies are using the word artificial intelligence in an artificial way. It's about intelligence. It's about insights that are converted to recommendations. And, some things make things easier. But the best thing that could happen is if people were to think about what are you trying to get out of it? And when you think about that, and you figure out what place artificial intelligence has in people's lives, then you'll be better off. Okay. Standard repeated tasks are an example of something that you would want a bot to do, but like you can't have a bot present like this,
Yes, got it. So the personal connect is something that everybody should keep in mind. That won't be replaced. Okay. So other question that Mohit is having is, will conscious, so the continuous practice that we are having just now. So suppose today also we did this conference online. We could have done it offline also in other scenarios. But today, as we are doing it online, a lot of things are changing for the organization's work culture also in the organization. And what do you think? Will in future work from home thing will increase as it saves money a lot for people? But will this kind of situation make that shift in the coming days, that people will be more happier to work from home and those things will get some boost? So that is the question that Mohit is using.
Yes, I mean, I think that smart companies will embrace this and use technology like AirMeet, and will use Mural and other examples. But I think it's a hybrid, and I've seen a lot of surveys on this, and I don't think people want to just work from home. I think there's loneliness and lots of problems associated with working from home. I think that like going on a conference to Las Vegas, for example, it's not just about what you're learning. It's about who you're interacting with, who you meet, and those things happen over a drink or a social setting. So work is not just about work. But what I would say is that just doing this with you now. It's now nighttime for you. It's morning for me. Yes. And there's nothing about this that isn't productive and valuable. And it just happened through LinkedIn, and that's the way business is going. I mean, so I'm happy to be a part of this, and I think that people should think about that. And I mean, we talked earlier about globalization, and as I gave this presentation. This is an American-based presentation, and I hope you gain value from the recommendations and insights from the presentation. But I will say this, that you shouldn't implement these ideas just as I displayed them. You have to understand what your market is, what the difference between how people are connecting in that market, both whether it's more WhatsApp or more of a different social network, or more Facebook or more mobile. Whatever it may be, there's language, is there humor in the podcast? Will people understand the same words and phrases and hopefully I didn't say things that, just went over people's heads. But it's very important in this day and age. Yes, advice is one thing, but you really have to take it. You have to understand it. You have to spend time with it. And when you spend time with it, then and only then can you take it and make it something that's valuable for you and your customers.